have napkins, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
All right is out of my hands.
You don't remember me, do you?
The movie kicks off with an intense, action-packed sequence that introduces us to Riley North, a woman on a mission determined to take down her biggest enemy. The chase is wild as Riley weaves through crowded streets, pushing forward despite a nasty knife wound. She refuses to back down and eventually corners her target. Overcome with emotion, she pulls out her gun and ends the feud with a fatal shot. Once the adrenaline wears off, Riley slips away to a hidden slum where she's been laying low. She climbs into a black van, choosing to take care of her own wounds rather than seek medical help. As she patches herself up, she opens a box with a chocolate cake inside. And just like that, memories from 5 years ago come rushing back. The flashback takes us to a happier time. Riley is with her daughter, Carly, who is excitedly getting ready for her birthday. Their moment is interrupted when a woman named Peg shows up, inviting Riley to a parents' meeting. Riley, however, turns her down, saying she has more urgent matters to deal with. Peg takes offense and storms off. Shrugging off the awkward exchange, Riley shifts her focus back to making Carly's birthday special. Meanwhile, Riley's husband, Chris, is at work, unaware of the events unfolding at home. As Riley gets ready to set up Carly's birthday celebration, her boss informs her that the shop will be closed for the day as he needs to visit a sick relative. Elsewhere, Chris is approached by his friend Mickey, who pitches a robbery plan. Chris isn't convinced and seems reluctant. Later that night, Riley returns home to find the house empty. It turns out Peg spread false rumors, making Carly's friend skip her birthday party. Determined not to let her daughter's day be ruined, Riley quickly makes alternate plans, pizza and a trip to the Christmas carnival. Before heading out, Chris calls Mickey to officially back out of the robbery, prioritizing his family's safety. However, as the three of them drive off, they don't realize they're being watched by a man named Cortez. Meanwhile, Mickey's poor decision to rob notorious drug Lord Diego Garcia turns deadly. Garcia doesn't take betrayal lightly and brutally executes Mickey. At the carnival, Riley, Chris, and Carly are enjoying themselves, completely unaware that danger is lurking nearby. As they wrap up their night, stopping for some peppermint ice cream, Garcia's men keep a close eye on them from a nearby car. Without warning, the hitmen ambush Chris and Carly, gunning them down in cold blood. Riley, in a state of shock, rushes toward her fallen family, but she, too, is shot and collapses. Luckily, the police arrive quickly, and Riley is rushed to the hospital in critical condition. A detective, determined to catch the killers, starts investigating the scene. Riley, barely hanging on, is taken to the ICU, where she spends days fighting for her life. As she slowly recovers, she is finally able to receive visitors. One day, a detective named Stan visits her, introducing himself as the lead investigator on her case. Stan tells Riley that Chris had planned to rob a drug dealer, Diego Garcia, but changed his mind at the last minute. Unfortunately, Garcia found out and had Chris and Carly killed in retaliation. He shows Riley a picture of her family at the carnival, triggering a crucial memory. She remembers seeing the shooters' faces. Stan immediately takes her to the station to identify them from a lineup. A few days later, Riley sits in a room as the suspects are brought in one by one. The moment she sees them, her memories flood back. Without hesitation, she points to the three men responsible for her family's deaths. Meanwhile, Stan and his partner, Moses, sit in a garden discussing the case. Moses reveals a shocking piece of evidence, a police badge found at the crime scene, proving that someone in law enforcement is working for Garcia. As Stan processes this, Moses reminds him that Chris never went through with the robbery, yet he and his daughter were mercilessly killed. He warns Stan that if he keeps digging into Garcia's business, he might become a target too. Reality starts sinking in. Taking down Garcia won't be easy. Back at home, Riley is struggling to cope with her devastating loss. One day, a man shows up at her doorstep offering money in exchange for her silence. He eyes her medication, but before he can take it, Riley grabs it back and kicks him out, refusing the hush money. Determined to get justice, Riley prepares to testify in court. However, sitting in the courtroom, she can't shake a feeling of unease. Suddenly, it clicks. The man who came to her house is actually the defense attorney. The injustice doesn't stop there. After Riley gives her testimony, The defense lawyer argues that her head injury has affected her memory, making her testimony unreliable. The judge shockingly rules in favor of the defense, citing a lack of evidence, and lets the suspects walk free. Furious at the corrupt system, Riley loses control and is restrained by the police. While being transported in an ambulance, she seizes an opportunity, knocking Stan out with an oxygen cylinder and escaping. Later, at Chris's funeral, Stan and Moses search for Riley among the crowd, but come up empty-handed. Fast forward to the present, Stan and Moses arrive at a crime scene at a carnival venue. To their shock, they find 3 bodies hanging above a merry-go-round, the very men who murdered Chris and Carly 5 years ago. Meanwhile, at an FBI office, Agent Lisa Salmon is alerted to a gun theft by a woman. When she checks the CCTV footage, she's stunned. It's Riley. She immediately jumps into action. Back at the crime scene, Stan and Moses analyze the evidence when Stan receives a call from Lisa. Meanwhile, Riley, fully recovered from her wounds, is back in action with a weapon in hand. At the FBI office, Lisa briefs Stan and Moses on multiple cases tied to Riley and shows them surveillance footage of her stealing firearms. At the same time, Riley has tracked down the corrupt judge who rigged her case. She ties him up, drives nails into his hands, and then walks away as a bomb detonates, reducing his house to rubble. News of the explosion reaches Stan, confirming the judge's death. The authorities realize they need to act fast before Riley takes down more people. Meanwhile, at Garcia's hideout, Cortez delivers alarming news. Riley has taken out the judge they bribed years ago. Garcia, seething with rage, orders a hit on her, offering a massive reward for her capture or death. Shortly after, Garcia has a heated argument with his associate, Ortega, over missing drug shipments. Garcia tries to brush it off, but Ortega isn't convinced. He warns Garcia that compared to Cortez, he's nothing more than a small-time player in the drug world. As the scene unfolded, Riley was seen sitting on a bus, handing out toys to a little girl whose father was a heavy drinker. While the man went downstairs to grab more booze, Riley suddenly pointed a gun at his mouth, warning him to prioritize his daughter's happiness over his addiction. Determined to track down a man named Marvin, Riley disguised herself as a scavenger and sneaked into the building where he was hiding. However, her cover was quickly blown when 2 guards spotted her. She wasted no time and took them down with ease. As she ventured deeper into the building, she was caught peeking through a door crack, sparking a gunfight. Even though she was heavily outnumbered, Riley managed to eliminate every single opponent except Marvin. Terrified by the attack, Marvin rushed to Garcia to report what had happened. Furious, Garcia demanded to know if Riley had stolen any money, but Marvin admitted she hadn't taken a dime. Instead, she had burned all their cash. Realizing the threat she posed, Garcia ordered Cortez to tighten security before she could strike again. Meanwhile, news of Riley's daring raid spread like wildfire, making headlines on every local news channel. Moses pointed it out to his partner, Stan, but tension quickly rose between them as he accused Stan of being distracted by his feelings for Lisa. Just when their argument reached its peak, Lisa showed up, curious about their progress on the case. Eager to impress her, Stan offered to take her to headquarters. Meanwhile, Garcia was still trying to figure out how Riley had tracked down Marvin. Cortez suspected she might have been following them all along. Enraged, Garcia hatched a deadly trap to take her out. As all this was happening, Riley was methodically planning her next move. On the other hand, Stan and Lisa were tracking her via satellite using high-tech surveillance equipment. Riley cautiously made her way into Garcia's hideout, only to realize too late that it was a setup. Sensing danger, she turned to escape, but one of Garcia's men spotted her and immediately set off explosives, blowing the place to pieces. Lisa and Stan quickly received reports about the blast and rushed to the scene, only to find total devastation. As Lisa went deeper into the wreckage, Moses called Stan, informing him that the destroyed warehouse was a known Garcia hideout. Despite the explosion, Riley managed to survive by hiding in an underground waterway. Emerging from a sewer, she hijacked a passing car and sped after Garcia's men, determined to take down the entire operation. Meanwhile, Garcia received a call from his men, who assured him that Riley had been killed in the blast, giving him a sense of relief. While Lisa was searching for Riley's hideout, she wandered into a slum and questioned a homeless man for leads. He spoke about a mysterious figure known as an angel who lived in the area, sparking her curiosity. Meanwhile, Riley finally caught up with Garcia's men, ambushing their vehicle and wiping them out on a deserted road. Back at home, Garcia saw a news report about a carjacking and immediately recognized the stolen vehicle as belonging to his men. Soon after, the car rolled up to his house, and his guards opened the gates, only to be met with gunfire from Riley, who had followed the car. Realizing she was getting closer, Garcia ordered a blackout and had his men take defensive positions. Riley, moving through the house like a ghost, eliminated anyone who stood in her way. Eventually, she found Garcia and cornered him, ready to finish things once and for all. But just as she was about to pull the trigger, she caught sight of Garcia's daughter, who reminded her of her own child. That brief moment of hesitation gave Garcia the chance to stab her. As the police arrived at the crime scene, Riley made a quick escape. She sought refuge at Peg's house, tying her up and taking a moment to treat her injuries before questioning her about a wedding ring. However, Peg's rude response only made Riley angrier, and she pointed her gun at her. Meanwhile, back at the crime scene, Moses was informed that the house was registered under a company's name, but he was convinced it belonged to Garcia. He confronted Officer Barker, demanding to know why Stan hadn't been informed about the connection. Barker insisted he had told Stan twice, making Moses suspicious of Stan's true motives. As Stan wandered through a shady part of town, he ran into Lisa, who showed him a black van loaded with illegal firearms. She revealed she had been investigating both Riley and Garcia for a long time and was determined to bring them down. She also mentioned that there were rumors of a corrupt cop working with Garcia. In a shocking turn of events, Stan, who had been on Garcia's payroll all along, suddenly pulled out his gun and shot Lisa, killing her on the spot. With her out of the way, he got rid of his weapon and immediately called Garcia, revealing Riley's location. Garcia wasted no time and sent his men to the slum area, splitting them up to hunt for Riley. But despite her injuries and exhaustion, she remained sharp and used her surroundings to her advantage. She managed to crush one of Garcia's men under a collapsing structure and then took a radio from another. Using it, she called Garcia, demanding he turn himself in or she would kill all his men. But Garcia, unfazed, refused to surrender. As Riley searched the area, she heard a cell phone ringing in the trash. Opening the box, she found Lisa's lifeless body. Fueled by anger, she grabbed Lisa's phone and immediately went live, exposing Stan as a dirty cop working with Garcia. She also revealed their current location. Within moments, the police rushed to the scene, but what they found was shocking. Garcia had taken a little girl hostage and threatened to kill her if Riley didn't surrender. With no other choice, Riley stepped out of hiding, only for Garcia to unleash a brutal beating on her. Despite the pain, she kept provoking him, buying time until the cops closed in. As sirens blared, Garcia and his men panicked, getting ready to flee. In a shocking betrayal, Garcia turned his gun on Stan and shot him before trying to escape. But Riley wasn't about to let him get away. Catching up to Garcia, she finally got her revenge, knocking him to the ground. With her gun aimed at the man responsible for her family's death, she hesitated for only a second before pulling the trigger. Garcia was gone. The police, however, immediately fired at Riley, hitting her in the shoulder, but she still managed to slip away. The next day, Moses found Riley at her husband's grave, beaten and exhausted. Knowing she needed help, he rushed her to the hospital. As the news spread, people across the city rallied behind her, despite her facing murder charges. Throughout her trial, Moses regularly visited her, reminding her that what she did had brought justice to the city. Thanks to Riley's actions, Garcia's criminal empire had been completely dismantled. As the film closed, Moses visited Riley one last time. He leaned in, whispered a few words of encouragement, and, with a smile, slipped a key into her hand, the key to her handcuffs. After everything she had been through, she had finally earned her freedom,